So is your first name Vald? How do you pronounce it exactly? Or is that a
That's just a name I came up with. What is it? Is it alliteration? Where you have like the first letter match the second? I was like, something with a V Viking, and I was like, we'll go with Vol. That sounds dope.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You're pretty elusive online, and you haven't really been posting a lot of content on your YouTube. And I'm kind of curious, like, do you do that intentionally? Is that just a lifestyle thing? Like, what's your relationship like with social media and stuff like that?
Well, so I try to spend less time on it because I guess my personality is more addictive. So it's like once I start on it, it's kind of hard to like stop obsessing about it. If that makes any
Mm.
sense? I
Yeah,
Because you just did like a social media detox. I'm sure you know what I mean by that.
I'm still pretty much on it right now. I went on Instagram just double check like see if you messaged me or anything like that, but
I'm
I don't
ruining your streak here.
I don't have Instagram on my phone, and I don't even have YouTube on my phone because I just noticed over the last little while I was getting really anxious from just taking in a bunch of input all the time, and
Yeah.
it'd be to the point where I couldn't really like I couldn't just sit down and cook a meal. I had to have something playing in the background or like
Yes.
constant stimulus, and I feel like I'm gonna drive myself insane if I don't
Yes, dude. I
take.
know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. So then you see, it's like it's kind of like a universal thing, then maybe.
Yeah,
But
I'm
but yeah, I guess to answer your question, it's not like what do you call it? It's not like I'm planning anything. It's just part of me was like I sat back and I was like, how am I sitting strength wise? How am I sitting size wise? And I was like, do people really care if I make like a 5 pound PR or a one rep, increase on whatever the lift is? It's just like it's not very exciting.
Mhm.
And I'm not like super gung ho to like blow up, on the interwebs and become like a celebrity or something like that. It's like I'm just doing it for fun, and it's like I just wanted people to be like, "Oh, that's dope." So I'm basically just taking the time to build something really great, so that when I post, people are like, "Dude, that's sick! Like, that's awesome!" They're all excited to go work out and whatnot. So
Mhm.
that's
I
kind of
think
my thought process.
I think that's a better way to look at it. I'm the same way. I have this podcast and I'm on social media and stuff, but at the end of the day, like I'm not necessarily trying to become some, influencer or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a weird thing, man. Like everyone today, there's almost like this pressure to be like some sort of like celebrity life coach, fitness influencer.
yes,
It's
yes, it's
weird,
so
man.
true. It's so true. But I think you're doing great, though. Like you're doing, in my opinion, really great.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm just trying to have, good conversations with people and
Well, you're
yes.
very good at it. You're very natural. So it's like you're gonna be a great when you're like a million subs deep,
Yeah.
before you knew you were in.
I hope so. That'd be cool. I
It's
wouldn't
gonna happen.
I wouldn't complain if big things started happening, but I'm not
Sure, why
necessarily
not?
cool, man. So I take it that like you're obviously super passionate about, training and
Yeah.
nutrition and everything you get into, but that's not your main thing. Like what do you do for a career? Is that something you like to
So
share?
yeah, yeah. So originally, it's kind of a crazy deal, but when I was in college, I was a biochem major and I was on that whole pre-med track. And as I was getting towards the end, I started feeling super burned out and I was like, this isn't for me. And like financially, it just didn't make any sense to me. So I decided, when the whole like lockdown business happened, I was like, you know what? I got a little bit of money floating around. I'm going to try day trading.
Mhm.
And so now, 2 years later, it's like I'm a day trader. That's my job now.
Holy
And
shit.
yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I didn't think I was going to make it, but it's a lot of fun. I remember
I
the first day I did it, I had like my heartbeat was like in my ears, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is crazy." So, but
Yeah,
now we're a little bit more chill. Still anxious, but a little more chill.
Are you yeah, day trading, that's an interesting thing because a lot of people who do it, I always feel like it kind of seems like one of those things you either do really well or you don't do well at all.
Dude, it's like I can't explain to you. I, like every day, it's like a psychology lesson. I'm not joking. Like you're fighting like all this like evolution and pre-wired stuff in your brain,
Mm,
and it's tough. So it's like if someone fails, I see it all the time. Someone blowing up their account, they're losing like 10 grand, 20 grand. So it's like it's tough. It's
mm.
definitely tough.
That's interesting that you were super deep into the university path and then you just completely changed
Yeah.
trajectories.
Yeah, I was like balls deep into it, and I was like, this ain't it. You know what I mean? So it's like better late than never, I guess. But yeah, I just didn't like the path it was going on.
I can't remember what it's called. It's like it's like where you're going down one path and then you feel like you've put in so much energy and effort into that you almost can't leave that path. It's some sort of fallacy, like
Yeah.
the sunken
Yeah.
cost fallacy or something like that. What was it like, kind of, because I've done similar things. Like I was super into music production for a long time, and I pretty much put like 10 years into that and just was like
Wow.
going deep into that. I still do produce music just for fun, but
Yeah.
and then one day I was just like, you know what? Not anymore. Not into it anymore. And it was like this, it kind of was like a slow thing, but all of a sudden I just realized, like, I'm like, man, I'm not even passionate about this. I'm not passionate
Yeah.
about, and then all of a sudden I had to be like, oh my God, who am I?
Yes, dude. Oh my God, exactly. It's like, what are you if you're not doing it? Yeah.
Yeah. So what was that
It's
like for
crazy.
you, just switching out of that?
It was, and I mean, to some degree it still is, but it's like when I first did it, I was like, am I messing up? Because you feel like that's your path. You spent all this time, like you said, you invested all that time, and you feel like, damn, I just wasted it. But I sat back and I was like, could I realistically do this stuff for the next 5, 10 years? And it's like, I can't. It's just not
Mhm.
for me. And then when you switch, as I'm sure you kind of know, it's like you switch to something and you're like, I got to be great at this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, how many opportunities do you get to like reset? So that's kind of where I was at. I was just very nervous, where I was like, I got to do really well. So the pressure was definitely on.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it's just basically like when I switched, like, I just got to be successful. Like, it just has to happen. Yeah.
Hmm. What, when you say successful, do you mean financially, or what does that look like?
To me, yeah, financially, definitely that. Because you got to pay bills. At the end of the day, everybody got to pay bills. So it's like that's definitely a big one. And especially like so, as you know, it's like when you go into anything, you're gonna kind of suck at it, you
Hmm.
know. And they say, like, especially in this job, it's like you pay your tuition. So when you lose, you're paying tuition to the stock market to learn, right? So
Yeah.
it's like it's a choice. It's like
Shit.
how much are you gonna pay for that tuition? You know what I mean? So you get to kind of pick. Some guys pay a lot, some guys pay very little. And but that first year, I'm not joking. Like I was very conservative. This sounds so pathetic. I was making like $1, $2, just small amount of nothing. And so I'm running into my fiance and I was like, I made like 2, 3%. It's insane. And she was like, what is that? What does that equal to? It's like, it's like $2 or $3, but one day you're there. Like, don't worry. We'll get there. So
No, that's cool, man. Yeah, I think I'm definitely very financially focused. Um, that's one thing when it came to the music, it was all about like, oh, I just need to like pursue my passion and do what I love. And but there does come a time, like I think men kind of reach it at a certain stage. Maybe it's like I'm about to turn 30 pretty soon here, and
oh,
that's
no
like,
kidding.
yeah, that's
Congratulations though.
yeah, January. January is my 30th
Good.
birthday.
All right,
But
I'm
there,
sending you a happy birthday then.
but you get to a point where you're like, damn, I as a man, like I need to make money. Like that, like whatever happens, like for me, I was pursuing my passion. I think as a millennial, you kind of get sold this lie of like, oh, just do what you love and pursue your,
Yeah.
which is like, yes. Like I'm not saying you should live a miserable life and feel like you're like slogging away at something you hate. But at the end of the day, like I don't know. Are you familiar with Jack Donovan?
The name sounds familiar, but I'm not too familiar
Well,
now.
in his book, The Way of Men, he talks about, when barbarians are at the gates, like no one has time for art and philosophy. Like you just need to like handle your shit. And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like when you don't have money and you're broke as fuck and you like aren't able to sustain yourself, you're not really able to pursue what you're passionate about.
Yes, that's so
Yeah.
true. It's like a foundation is gone.
Yeah. For me, like obviously, like I tried a bunch of different things like after music, and then eventually I just started a company with my brother. It's just moving and delivery, but
No
that's
kidding.
kind of taken off. And like you said, like you start a business, you know nothing, and then you slowly kind of piece it together. You
Yeah,
learn how to do payroll, learn how to hire people, but you make a ton of mistakes,
bro. That's so sick though. I'm
and
so
then
glad
you
that's going well for you guys. I was gonna ask you, like, I bet the workload's got to be nuts right now.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I'm up here in Canada, so it's
Oh, okay.
actually it's a pretty profitable gig, and like owning your own company, like the tax write-offs and everything. And it's like
Yeah,
this isn't something I'm extremely passionate about, but making money and sustaining myself and being financially independent is what I'm
yeah.
passionate about.
Just
And
creating that cash flow, and then it's like you can go on whatever you want. Maybe you re-find your passion for music. Who knows?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you could, from 30 to 35, you could make a significant financial debt, especially if you're smart with your money.
Yeah.
Um, where did you kind of learn your financial principles from?
So, I mean, I guess is it all right if I like plug it? Like, I'm not
Oh,
sponsored or anything by
go
it, but
off, man.
so I'm a big follower of like it's real life trading, and it's a great YouTube channel. That's basically where I got all my financial stuff from, and like how to trade. And he actually has other stuff for like buying houses, renting, and all that kind of stuff.
Mm,
So yeah, pretty much mine's just focused on like what's the right word? Like very little expenditures, trying to like keep track of finances, and it's
yeah.
like very conservative that way, and just bringing as much cash flow as possible.
Mhm.
Just I mean simple stuff, right? Like, just basic economics there.
Are you a fan of Dave Ramsey at all?
Okay, so yeah, I just started watching him actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave Ramsey's he was a big like when I first like after my music career, I was in a decent chunk of debt. So I had
Oh
to
my god. Yeah.
I had to climb out of like I at the end of it, it was like 20K Canadian, so a reasonable amount. And I fucking his book's all about like he like is kind of like the debt guy, like the get out of debt guy.
Yeah.
And I followed his book to a T. I sold my car. I rode my bike to my shitty job for
No
like
kidding.
fucking 2 years. Actually, no, I'm sorry.
Damn.
I didn't ride my bike for 2 years, but I was like paying off my debt for 2 years. And at one point I sold my car, was riding my
Bro,
bike to work and shit. Like
that's sick. You're gonna be like debt free and be the quad father. Like that's fantastic.
yeah.
That's so sick.
So yeah, that was pretty intense. Dave
Yeah,
Ram.
he's such a meme now. Like everyone's like, "Hey, latte breath." You know what I mean? Like millennials enjoying a coffee, and it's like Dave Ramsey pulls up.
Yeah. It's crazy though, because a lot of people go into mountains of student loan debt and shit.
Yeah,
And like I can
that's
only
so true.
I try not to compare myself to people, but I'll sometimes just look up like what the average person like what their debt level is, and I'm like, holy shit,
Bro,
dude.
you start feeling real thankful, like real quick.
I remember I used to take like back in the day, this is in my early 20s. I used to take like mushrooms and LSD and stuff like that. And one time I took mushrooms and I just looked at my bank account and I saw that there were negative numbers in my I don't know why I opened up my bank account while I was high on mushrooms, but I look and I'm like, oh, negative however many thousands of dollars. And I was just like, what is this? I had this whole like concept of debt, like I'm a slave. And I just was
Oh
like,
my god, bro, that's
never.
crazy.
I was like,
That's too funny.
never again.
So, I mean, that was one of the reasons why when I was on this track, I'm looking at all these people. If you go to medical school, the debt is just unbelievable.
Like 200K, 300K.
Bro,
Like,
easily. And so I'm looking at this and I was like, I can't do that. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I can't, that's too crazy for me. Like, I don't want to be in that much debt.
mhm,
And so I was like, I'm just going to try and like cut it off here. I think I see an avenue. And my plan was, I was like, if this becomes successful, maybe I'll re-pursue it. You know what I mean? Like if I make enough money and it's like I can justify it, I can go back. It's like you can always go back.
yeah.
That's not an issue. I was just like, just right now, my passion's not there. So it's like, how hard are you working? It's like you're paying all this money and for what? So
Yeah.
all these questions were coming in, and I was like, I can't do it. I got to make another decision.
hmm Yeah, the debt thing is crazy. Another aspect of is I don't think I would do very well in the universities as they stand today, or like post-secondary education is. I don't know how you feel about all the woke stuff going on, but
Bro, yeah. You're in good company. You're in good company. Don't worry.
yeah, what was it like when you were going to school? It wasn't too bad, or was there a lot of that?
Honestly, and I went to a pretty like diverse college. Like there's just a lot of different people there from like all over the place. And honestly, I didn't really see too much of it.
Mhm.
I'm in the southeast, so it's like it's a little different down here. It's like I imagine if I was like on the west coast or maybe
Yeah.
northeast, it'd be a little different. But down here it wasn't too bad. Really wasn't too bad. You'd have your, crazy person here and there, but everyone else is pretty chill. They're just getting along.
Mm-hmm. That's cool, man. Well, when did you first get into physical training and taking your health seriously?
So let's see. I think it was like 8th grade, maybe. So I was what, maybe like 13, something like that. And was doing football, and I was like, immediately, like, I'm competitive. So I was like, I gotta start cracking heads here, I gotta get big. And I was like 6'1" or something like that, and I was like 147 pounds. So it's just a strapping young man, very strapping. And I was naturally strong. I had like some good strength naturally, but I was like, I'm just not very big.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I went to Walmart. I think I got like a 20-pound dumbbell and a 30-pound dumbbell. And I was just in my room like every night, just doing all kinds of crazy stuff I could think of.
Yeah.
And just like stuff like I even did like Jefferson curls, like these weird Jefferson curls to one side, just kind of all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that like fried my lower back. It hurts like hell. And that's kind of how I started. And then our football team was like absolute garbage in every way. And like we just ran a lot. So we weren't very big. And it was after that summer, I got like a cheap little bench. And so I was doing benching, I was doing like power cleans, overhead pressing. And my granddad was actually a bodybuilder back in the day. And I wish I had a photo with me to show you because the dude was huge, like massive dude. And but he gave me like these little manuals and pamphlets. And so I'm seeing guys like clean and jerk, behind the neck press, like all these weird, funky exercises. So that's just kind of how I got my foothold into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you do a lot of the old kind of style of training. Like what are some of the more what would you consider to be the more, I guess today would be considered unconventional exercises? Like what
Like
kind
the
of
stuff
things?
that I do.
Yeah.
I would say like the bent press was definitely, and it still is my favorite. I love the bent press.
Mm-hmm.
Like it builds everything. You know what I mean? You actually get a lot of muscle out of it. And it's like, I know you had like Atlas Power Shrug on here, and that dude
Yeah.
does everything. Like, that dude's so crazy.
Yeah.
And the way like I kind of bridge the gap though is it's like, does it build muscle, right? Like sometimes you get like a funky exercise, but it's like you can tweak it to build tons of muscle. So it's like that's just kind of how I like break down stuff. So a lot of bent pressing. I do like Jefferson curls and like Zercher deadlifts just for like building the lower back. I find it like it builds the lower back better than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess like it's not really unconventional, but I don't really squat, bench, and deadlift like everybody else does. Like I'm not really into that whole scene. It's like I'd much rather pick something that's like, does it build you aesthetically and also make you super strong?
So rather than do the conventional, deadlift, bench, and squat, what do you do exactly?
So like let's say this, like low bar back squat, right? It's like that's probably the best way to display overall like leg strength, right? Like in a compound lift.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but it makes your ass huge. And it's like I already have a big ass, so I don't really want it any bigger. And it's like it doesn't really, for me, didn't develop the quads super duper well. And didn't build the upper back. There's a lot of muscles that I was like, it's not developing super well, and it's not also making me super strong and everything else. So instead, I was like, I like front squats. I was like, front squats are super hard, right? They build the crap out of the upper back. And then it's like when I go back to low bar squatting, it's like I'm cheating. You know what I mean? It feels like it's effortless. And then same for like the bench. Like the bench is fantastic. Like it's a great lift. Again, best display of like upper body strength, or for the horizontal plane. But it's like aesthetically, it's like, well, it's not going to build that upper chest. If you're natural, your upper chest is typically going to kind of suck.
Yeah.
And I was like, you hear all these people, they're snapping up their shoulders and whatnot. So I was like, I like incline pressing. If you get super strong in incline pressing, what happens when you go back to bench? It's going to feel like a decline press. It's going to be like, dude, this is so freaking easy. I'm just pressing at a downward angle. It's like nothing. So it's like I kind of break it down like that, where it's like typically for whatever reason, maybe it's like chance, the harder lifts are the ones that typically build the most aesthetically pleasing muscles, from what I found.
What about dips? Do you do a lot of dips?
So, oh man, bringing up some memories. So I I'm really good at dips. They were like my favorite exercise at the time just because I could lift so much weight with it. And I was actually gunning for Eric Bugenhagen's record. And I was like, at the time, I was like, I'm going to smash the shit out of that. Like, it's going to be like absolutely nothing. I don't know if you looked, there's like an older video on my YouTube channel where I had my power rack set up and I had like these two planks, these 2x4s that I set up on the pins.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
And I'm on it and it's like this close together, super close, and it wobbles the whole time. And so I was doing dips on those. And I was like, man, I'm like progressing like crazy. And I think I was going to do 180 pounds for a set of like 8 or something like that. And I think I weighed like 240 at the time. And I went down. I think it was on my 3rd or 4th rep. All of a sudden I heard like all this snapping shit, like right up in here.
Oh,
I popped down and I was like, no way. No way. So I like go in there and it's like, yeah, I like partially tore the tendon there because I went from like, I was on that, what do you call it? The 36 eggs a day diet.
yeah. I'd like to get into that too later.
Well, it's like, I kept telling people, I didn't get like that big from it, but the strength gains were just absolutely ridiculous. I don't know if it was all the choline or B12 or whatever it was, but it was like the strength gains were just absurd. So I was doing these dips. I think I started off with like 2 plates. It was like 90 pounds. And every week I was like slapping on a 25, a 45. You can kind of see like how I messed up. It's like too much too soon. So,
yeah.
Man, I was like kicking myself. Like, this is so shit, you know?
Crazy, man. Yeah. What, as far as injuries are concerned, how many injuries have you gotten along the way?
So I think it was 2 years ago. I was vigorously training for like more one-arm pull-ups. And I remember one day, again, I did like this high frequency program, packed on tons of strength. And every time I'd pull, it was like on my left arm, like back in here, I'd feel this like tightness. It was a kind of a weird feeling. I couldn't really explain it, and I kind of ignored it. And I remember one day I grabbed up on the ring and I'm pulling. I was like, "Oh shit, okay!" Like we're almost there. Like I've broken out of the lock. We're getting there. And it's like getting all tight, and then snap. Heard all this. It sounded like tree branches, snapping.
Oh.
So I was like, "Holy shit!" I had no idea. It was my first injury. I had no idea what was going on. So at that point, it was like I couldn't even like row my arm to my body. Like it was that messed up towards I couldn't even bring it to me. And at that point, I was like, I'm screwed. Like I'm in so much trouble. This is like totally done for. And I was kind of like, I'm not going to the doctor. I was like, I'm not going to do any of that stuff. And maybe it was silly, but over the course of the years, I was kind of like, maybe I'll never get back to my original pulling strength. That might be it for me. And fast forward to today, it's like, I'm stronger than I ever was before. But the thing was, it's like once you damage that, that's like an internal rotator because I like damaged my subscap. So you damage one part, another area tries to kick in and like protect it. So that's what exposed my pec to it. So it's like once I damaged the subscap, it left the pec minor or the pec major more exposed to it. So I've only had 2 major injuries, but they heal. They come back. So it's like, you ever snap your shit up, don't ever feel like you're done for. Like that's just it for you.
I've never had any, super bad acute injuries, but just like mild aches and pains, like that weird, like even the other day, I actually kind of like, I don't know if I tweaked my lat, but it was like maybe a little bit closer to the spine. I'm not super sure which it was. I think it was my lat, but I was like pulling something and it was actually lifting furniture. And I felt like my muscle just kind of seize up all weird. And I don't
That's
really
always how it happens.
I don't usually, that doesn't happen to me very often. So I was like, oh, and I was like, I kept working and it was fine. But just like weird, or like my right bicep, sometimes when I'm doing pull-ups, it just it feels like a little bit strained. But I just try to take it easy. I don't let it scare me too much. And I don't know. I don't want to, I don't want to baby it. Cause there was a time where, or just recently I had like, when I was doing pressing movements and almost felt like my right bicep was kind of kicking in, connecting to my shoulder. It felt a little weird, but I just took a break from dips and some other move. I just kind of switched my exercises up, went a little bit lighter, and now it doesn't bug me. So it's just like, you got to kind of manage the little aches and pains and eventually they kind of sort themselves out. I used to have really bad chronic back pain, but I pretty much healed that up just through like, I don't know, stiff leg deadlifts and just doing things with my back. Who knew that actually like strengthening your back helps you?
Remember, you didn't like pop a bunch of pills and lay on your back all day?
No,
that's so weird.
I mean, when I was younger, I smoked weed and laid on my back all day, but
that's just balance, man. But yeah, it's good that you like listen to your body, and it's like it's never worth pushing it, because it's like if you snap your shit up, it's like you're gonna spend a hot second just rehabilitating, which is just no fun.
Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, when you think of rehabilitating, what does that look like? Because there's a lot of these dorks who do like all these correctional exercises and stuff on the internet. And I kind of fell for that thing, for that whole, you know, just sitting there with a resistance band and doing all these like dorky exercises. But in reality, like a lot of just the fundamental lifts are correctional exercises, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah. Let's see. If I tweak something, like if you're talking about like, oh yeah, like maybe my shoulder feels funky, right? It's like that just has something to do with like tension. Like there must be some muscle somewhere that's overly tight, or maybe it's not tense enough. So like when you're talking about like your bicep, it's like probably your long head is just like a little funky, and so you just need to maybe do some isometrics or something like that to like get the nervous system firing properly again. So it's like for tweaks, just like isometrics and kind of like you're talking about, just kind of going through that range of motion and teaching the body like it's okay, like don't panic, we're totally fine, you know, you're just overreacting. When I tore, or like when I ruptured the tendon, as I said, I didn't go to the doctor, so it's like I healed on my own. And essentially what I did was I looked up like what's the best way, like what's the fastest protocol to rebuild a tendon. And if you ever snap your shit up, just remember this, come back to it, because I'll promise you it'll come back very quickly. I would take collagen and vitamin C like an hour before, and I would do high rep band work. I would take like a band or a broom or something like that, and you just get as much blood flow to that area as humanly possible, and you can do that 3 times a day. And I also took like Go-To Cola. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
I haven't heard of that. No.
It's really great for you. Just actually as an injury preventative, if you look at the studies, it reduces, what is it? Like granulation by 25%, like the time. So it's like, if it would take you, you know, 8 weeks to rebuild a tendon, you know, it takes 6 weeks. So it shortens that span. And so also it's like when you're lifting really heavy and the tendons are remodeling, that Go-To Cola is quickening the remodeling process.
That's cool. That's cool. One thing I did want to get into is the, you know, the lower back training. You do, you know, Zercher deadlifts and Jefferson curls. How do you actually implement those into your program? Because that's something that I'm interested in and I'm experimenting with, but I want to get that like full flexion and extension strength of the spine, but I just don't know how to like implement it and what days to put it on and stuff. And that's something I'm struggling with. So I'm curious.
So, like I said, so everything that I do, I'm thinking about it from like a bodybuilding perspective. Like, you know, I've got like a whole lot of ideas where it's like, I want to be really strong, really healthy, really aesthetic. And so my thought process on this is that like Jefferson curl is like a deep stretching movement on the lower back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like after you deadlift, let's say you do like conventional deadlift, sometimes your back feels a little stiff, but it's all pumped up with blood.
Yeah.
So it's like typically what I do is like I'll get done deadlifting, get my back all nice and pumped up, stand on a platform, and then you can just take like a barbell, like just a 45-pound barbell. You do that like slow, deep stretch, really stretch out those erectors, even on a hyperextension machine. You know, that's also pretty close. You're rounding your back. It's like you do that, it's like those tight muscles in the back, they're going to start loosening up. They're not going to be like over tensioned. You know, your back's going to be all stiff the next morning. And then it's like, that stretching while the muscle's pumped, it's like, well, now you're building those erectors. They're getting that like stretch tension. So you're going to build crazy muscle too. So it's like you're bulletproofing the spine, then you're getting these sweet, thick erectors, you know, from doing the Jefferson curls after the deadlift. So I use that stuff like after the main work. Like once I'm all pumped up, that's when I do those weird, funky stuff where it's like it's stretching the muscles in all these weird ways.
That's a good way to look at it. That kind of, I could see that being a thing for sure. Like doing it rather than looking to it as like a specific lift, you're using it after as like a special lift.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you ever trying to like load Jefferson curls to to a high degree? Do you ever try to do like a heavy Jefferson curl or anything like that? Because some guys are doing crazy shit like that.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where I haven't tested it, very heavily, like any heavy weight, but I've also noticed like you don't always have to like train like these guys are doing, where it's like maybe you say like I'm gonna really specialize in Jefferson curls, I'm gonna do really heavy weight. It's like I don't honestly think you have to. I think if you just day in, day out, you're doing these slow, steady stuff, right? You could actually walk in there one day and just absolutely smash something crazy. Like just kind of tying this together, like what do you call it? Like an example is I do like a lot of grip stuff sometimes. Like I've done some different feats of strength for grip. And it's like some guys are like, so what do you do? Like, are you holding on to like heavy ass barbells and like going max effort and stuff like that? It's like, no, sometimes I just do really long hangs on a towel. Just really like simple stuff. And it's like, it adds up. So like for the Jefferson curls, like, dude, you do 45 pounds for a while and you're like, this is too easy. I'm going to slap on some 25. Now it's 95. And you just kind of keep doing that. Next thing you know, it's like, I'm doing like 225 just to keep my back healthy. It's like, that's just how bulletproof I am.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah. Like you were talking about how, you have bodybuilding as your main goal, but you also have, you want to be bulletproof. You want to be aesthetic. You want to be healthy as possible.
Yeah.
Like how do you think all those things relate to one another? Because I know I posted that thing on, that new nutrition tracker chronometer. Well, it's new for me. I just started using it. How vital is it that, especially natural bodybuilders, people don't like to talk about that, but I think as natural bodybuilders, like you said in that Instagram DM, we really need to focus on every aspect of optimizing our health in order to optimize muscle gains. What are your thoughts on that?
Like, as far as nutrition goes, I think like the chronometer thing, how fantastic is that? Like it's
pretty awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So I like that. I think it's super important. And it's like, how many times have you seen this stuff? And I think Atlas talked about it as well. And I was like, he's right. He's absolutely right. I was wrapped up in this whole thing where it's like men's testosterone is absolutely gutter trash. And it's like, it's abysmal and there's nothing we can do about it. That's just the way it is. And then it's like, I'm seeing more and more examples of these guys where it's like, oh yeah, I started eating really well. And all of a sudden my testosterone skyrocketed. Or they say some shit like, this is my favorite. Sorry. It's like, oh, you have zinc, boost your testosterone. It's like, oh, that's sick. Magnesium. And then it's like, what do you call it? Like boron and all that kind of stuff. Like all these, minerals.
Yeah.
When you're sitting there going like, oh, that's sick. Like, yeah, it's boosting T. It's like, nah, bro, that's like eating a clean diet. It's like just eating healthy shit.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a no-brainer. Like it's stuff we should be doing anyway. So I do think optimizing your testosterone is super important. I think those micronutrients really make a huge difference. I don't know how much like the macros make a big difference. I do think the micros make a big difference.
One thing that kind of bugs me in the bodybuilding nutrition space, or I guess you'd say the evidence-based nutrition space that's going on, is there's some people that'd be like, what does clean eating even mean, bro? Like this whole idea of like, it's like,
bro,
I'll explain it right now. It's like that's such a weird straw man argument to be like, no one's been able to tell me what clean eating is. I'm not going to mention any names, but I was like, well, I can tell you in 2 seconds. Like,
it's pretty straightforward. It's like you're
meat,
just doing this
fruit, vegetables, like stuff, and then they'll be like, well, everything is processed. It's like, yeah, dude, but like vegetables in a bag is not the same as like some highly processed like granola bar or something. It's a totally different game.
I mean, we at least have boundaries where it's like, well, this is an apple, and this is like some super processed Danish. It's like you kind of know the difference here.
Yeah. As far as you eating a clean diet though, what do you do? Do you go off the rails every once in a while and eat whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
It's like 80-20. Like I eat pretty clean for the most part. And my dinners are usually pretty nice. Like my dinners are whatever my girl makes me. So it's like, I'm not really picky. And, but yeah, it's like, if I'm going to go out on vacation or something like that, or it's someone's birthday, I'm not going to throw a hissy fit and be like, oh, I can't have cake. I can't have that shit. That's not okay. It's like, come on, like you got to live a little bit. It's
100%.
Is it going to make that big a difference? Honestly.
Yeah, I think it's important to have balance because I used to be like that where I was like, no, I can't eat any sugar or do any of this or, and You know, I think if you drink a little bit or eat some shitty food every once in a while, it's just, if anything, it's gonna help you because there's also like the stress management aspect of it, where it's like if you're constantly worried about eating clean, you're gonna drive yourself insane.
You know, I don't know if like tell me your thoughts on this. I'm kind of wondering where it's like these guys that eat super duper clean, like you just never have alcohol, you never have any kind of like processed food, like whatsoever.
Mhm.
Do you think that's maladaptive? Where it's like, because we live in that kind of world, and it's like ideally you wouldn't, but it's like you're going to be exposed to it. So it's like, do you think you're making yourself less adapted to your current environment by just totally foregoing it?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how I'd frame that exactly. I mean, I guess, yeah, to a certain degree, yes. But I also think, you know, since it's kind of weird because we've evolved to pretty much like pursue like energy dense foods, and because for survival. But
Yeah.
now we're like in this space where we have access to calories, we have access to everything we could ever want. So it's almost like we have to now control ourselves, be very disciplined, but also know when to. I don't know. It's weird, but I get what you're saying for sure.
Right. It's like if you, let's say you drink alcohol like occasionally, it's like, well, you have some tolerance for alcohol now
Oh, I see what
versus
you're saying. Yeah.
you never have alcohol. And also, it's like, all right, I'm gonna have a little, and you're just absolutely plastered. You know, it's like you have no adaptation for any of that stuff. Like you're just getting like smashed by it.
Yeah. Well, it's even like for me, like I like smoking cigars on occasion.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And I don't think, you know, smoking like 2 cigars a month is going to do anything fucking negative.
Bro, dude, think about all those dudes from like the 1940s or 1950s, like they smoked, they drank, and they lived to be like 100. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like there's obviously some room to play here where it's not like 1000% one way or the other.
As far as like drinking is concerned, and maybe like even like people who smoke weed and shit like that, do you partake in any of that kind of stuff? As far as like, where do you kind of draw the line?
I don't have any problems with any of that kind of stuff. Like I smoked weed when I was like in high school, like once or twice, wasn't anything crazy. And it just never really, it wasn't my thing. I liked alcohol more.
Hmm.
And but even now I'm like, I'm not very big on drinking. Like I drink like once in a while. Like if I'm having like a nice sandwich, I'll crack open a beer and have it, you know, but it's usually like one very socially. So it's like I do drink, it's just very moderately. And I think that's kind of the way to go, where it's like, who is it? Was it the Saxon brothers? You remember those guys?
I
The old
don't.
time strongmen?
Oh, okay. And they drink a lot
Yeah.
of beer.
Bro, they drink beer like it was water. I mean, they basically lived off that stuff. And it was like, they're fine. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I think you adapt to it. It's just not that big of a deal for some of that stuff.
Hmm. Absolutely. As far as your specific diet and like your nutrition philosophy, what do you kind of eat day to day?
A lot of this stuff, I mean, it really just depends. Like I try to like, how do I put this? I always try to like create some kind of structure and then end up breaking my own rules and just going somewhere else. So it's like I can't even follow my own stuff. But that said, it's like typically I try to eat a lot of potatoes. I try not to eat too much grain, but I do eat some. And I eat some cottage cheese typically just for protein. I do drink milk, and I have meat like once a day. I usually have that at dinner. So I'm not like a huge meat eater, but I do enjoy it. I got to have it at least once a day, but you know, no more than that. So it's just simple like that. And I don't eat that many vegetables, truth be told. I don't eat that many.
Hmm, that's
Yeah.
interesting. And do you track everything to a T, or do you kind of not anymore?
Like if I'm like, it's usually if I'm cutting, if I'm trying to cut weight, I'm not doing a very good job, then I'm like, all right, we're gonna have to like rein this in and figure out where we're messing up at. But if I'm losing weight and it's like, well, I'm looking leaner, well, it's like, dude, you're fine. Like just keep doing whatever you're doing. It seems to be working.
Hmm.
And for bulking, I pretty much never track it. It's just if I work out really hard, I'm starving. I'm just gonna eat whatever I want. So
Hmm.
nothing
Yeah,
too strict.
yeah. I like when I'm bulking, it feels like you have a lot more freedom. Um, I'm curious, like when it comes to your cutting and bulking, do you still do a lot of that cutting and bulking, or are you kind of at a point now where you're just eating at maintenance and just slowly kind of?
I'll never do it. I will never eat at maintenance. I always think I'm gonna be working towards something, you know. It's like, all right,
Yeah,
let's be getting shredded or getting bigger. But yeah, I'm part of that cut bulk type stuff. And yeah, I'm cutting right now. So
cool, man. And what, as far as like how bulked up you'll let yourself become, like what does that look like?
so damn. I think it was, let me see if I can get my dates straight. I think it was like last year or something like that. I got really lean. I think I was down to like 218. That's like fully depleted. And I bulked that entire year. And that's when I shot up to like 260. So it's like very clean bulk, right? Like definitely all muscle. There's no whatsoever. So now I'm paying the piper on that one because it's like I did get a little fat on that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I guess I just bulked up until it's like until my abs like disappeared. Or you know, I'm like sitting there on my bed shirtless and I'm like, wow, I got like this fat just like hanging over my belt line. It's like, yeah, I probably should start cutting. You know, if I start feeling kind of gross outside and you know being shirtless, and I'm like, yeah, I should probably start cutting.
Yeah, I did that. I bulked up to like 205, 206. I think I was 206 at the top.
Oh,
And
that's
now
sick.
I'm at like 182. But I've
You
been
got to
cut.
break that 200-pound mark at some point, right?
But I
Every
did get,
man has to.
I almost didn't even realize how fat I had become. Like after I cut down and saw pictures of myself, I was like, dude, I got like super chubby for a bit there.
You just, yeah, you never know how bad it is. You're like, oh shit, like I'm a tub of shit. Yeah,
And then you realize how long you have to cut for. The reason I asked that is because I feel like I've kind of learned a lesson where I don't want to do. I'm like you. I don't want to eat at maintenance because I don't feel like I'm doing any. I don't feel like
yeah,
I'm not going anywhere if I'm eating at maintenance. I mean, there's maybe the occasional situation where someone's going to recomp, but I don't know how to what degree that actually occurs. Kind of
right.
seems like it's kind of like a magical thing that doesn't really happen. But I'm just trying to figure it out for me. Like I want to be able to eat in a surplus for like 10 months out of the year. And Steve Shaw talks about that. He talks about, the slow, lean bulk,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is kind of boring because I just want to eat as much as I want. But
There's no
I
fun in that. Like, damn.
I want to do that though, so I don't have to like cut again for a significant amount of time. Because I hate cutting, man. I don't know. Some people are like, oh, I don't mind it. Like, well, I try to aggressively cut just to get it over with, kind of thing.
Do you have that thing where it's like, if you've been bulking, all of a sudden, like it's almost like as soon as you say, all right, I'm going to start bulking, all of a sudden you're not hungry. And it's like, all right, I'm going to start cutting. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's my appetite. Now I'm ravenous.
Yes, to a certain extent. What I did notice though is as I was cutting and I just slowly kind of bring my calories down, and now I'm eating like between like 2000 and like 2200 a day,
Okay.
and which is pretty low. Still losing weight. I've noticed that when I went on like a maintenance phase and I actually tried to like eat some food, my stomach felt like shrunk. Like I felt like I couldn't actually, like it actually made me feel sick when I ate a bunch of food.
Yeah.
So for me, I do feel like that sometimes, because as soon as you say no, I can't have that, you're like, oh, but I want it now. But I also feel like you almost get used to kind of cutting, and then when you go to bulk up, you like can't. Like if I went back to like 3,500 calories a day, I'd probably get sick the first few days. I'd be like, oh, I feel like
Right.
you kind of adjust. You kind of
You-
adjust.
Sorry, do you cut slowly or do you cut quickly? Like, what's your,
Well, I'm kind of experimenting with that. I was trying to figure like, so what I did is I just cut my calories right to 2,500, like when I first started. But there'd be times where it's like, oh, I'm just too hungry, so I'm going to eat that little extra snack or whatever. But I
yeah.
was slowly going down. I mean, can't remember how many weeks it was, but I was losing like 1.3 pounds per week.
Okay.
So that's pretty reasonable. I think
That's
that's
not
kind of,
bad at all.
yeah. I don't know if you call that fast,
I think it's solid. That's like solid.
moderate. But I noticed that when I ate at maintenance and kind of like let my body like readjust just for 2 weeks, just to kind of like, I don't know what the science is, but almost like reset my metabolism. As soon as I went back into a deficit, it's like the weight just started coming off like crazy.
Yes. Yeah.
I was like
That's super good.
I was actually kind of surprised. Like I didn't gain any weight when I was eating at maintenance. And I don't even think I was eating at maintenance, because I was actually kind of like stuffing my face a little bit because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I get food again. But I checked my weight at the end of that and I was the exact same weight. So I didn't gain anything, which was really good.
So I'm doing the exact same thing actually this week. Like I'm deloading a little bit
Mhm.
and it's like I'm also jacking up the calories because I've been cutting for a hot second now. And it's the exact same thing where it's like I went to like Korean barbecue the other night and ate like a madman.
Nice.
And yeah, it's like it doesn't really change. Metabolism's coming back up. You're getting hungry again, you know? And so I think that's super important is taking little breaks and like letting everything reset.
And this, do you get really stressed while you're cutting? Moody? Kind of, no?
No, I wrestled for a long time, so it's like I'm used to just not eating anything. I can go. Actually, my problem is like once I start eating, that's when it's hard to stop. But if I just don't eat, I kind of forget about it. I just kind of go about my business.
Yeah, I did notice that my mood when I kind of dabbled with like a pretty extreme caloric deficit, I did start to get pretty moody.
A little hangry,
and like a little just even like my sleep didn't feel too good. So that's, I don't know. I can't remember who said it, but they're like dieting is kind of like riding a wave. Like you just gotta kind of
yeah, it is.
You know, you gotta just listen to your body to a certain extent, but you also gotta kind of override your urges to eat because at the end of the day, yeah, that's something.
Don't get in my way of being aesthetic.
Yeah, I'm not the kind of guy who's super like I don't feel like I'm at a place where I'm even close to like my potential, like my muscle building potential. I honestly feel like I've only been really training properly because like over the last 2 years, maybe, because before then I was training like an idiot. Like over the last year, I've really learned how to train properly or optimally, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So I really I'm hoping the next, 5 to 6 years, I just fucking pack on mass. And I'm not super attached to my abs, so I don't mind getting a little bit chunky.
Yeah.
But pretty much like the reason I'm cutting now is like I'm actually pretty lean right now. I feel good. Like I'm probably at like 17% body fat, which isn't too bad. But I'm gonna try to get to I might try to get to like 12 just so I can create a bunch of room to like grow again.
Yeah, for sure. And also it's like even what's that? Is it like bear mode or something like that? When you just get like just big as shit. I think that's aesthetic personally. Like, I don't actually like the like super tiny waist and V taper.
Yeah.
So I think that like big old power looks pretty dope.
Absolutely. This like ab obsession culture we're in is kind of annoying, especially these like super skinny TikTok bodybuilders.
Dude,
it's like,
yes.
I'm sick of that look. It's like, dude, you weigh like 140 pounds.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna people. Isn't that like, what do they call that? It's like abs on a skinny guy is like tits on a fat chick.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I tell my brother.
Like, it does not count.
100%.
Cancel. I'm canceled now. So.
That's okay. I've talked about some controversial things on here.
All right, good.
Yeah, so that's one thing. Like the ab obsession can really hold people back.
Yeah, it definitely can for sure.
Because even like when I was getting bulked up, some people would be like, "Oh, you're getting kind of chubby, bro." Yeah, but I'm getting strong as fuck.
Like, just wait till I lean down and be like a Greek god.
As far as like how you implement progressive overload, do you track everything to a T? Like you have a logbook and all that?
Yeah, I actually do take my tracking very seriously. So I actually have like a Google Excel spreadsheet or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I've got like all these log books just meticulously tracked. So that is one thing that I do track really well.
And how important do you think that is for?
I think it's super important, especially if you have like a bad memory like I do, because it's like, I don't remember what I hit last time. And so it's like, it's also good to go like, because I have like measurements and stuff like that I put in there as well, where it's like, I can look back last year and see like, well, how big was I? How big was my waist? What did I weigh? What was my strength like? And so it's like, it's just a good metric because I think you can very easily spin your wheels if you're not careful. Like I've seen a lot of guys, and this is kind of my critique for some of this, what do you call it? Like, what's the right word? Like the different exercises, you know what I mean? Where it's like the unconventional type stuff.
Okay, yeah.
It's like kind of my critique with that because a lot of these guys actually don't look that good. If you notice that, like sometimes they kind of look a little shitty. And it's like you change stuff so often because it's like, well, I just want to keep being different. I want to keep, doing all this different kind of stuff. It's like, that's great. That's cool. But it's like, how do you know where you've gone? How do you know if you're really that much stronger and all that kind of stuff? It's like, you can't track any of that. So it's like, you can very easily go like, well, last year I did this. It's like, oh shit, I'm doing the exact same weight and same reps and everything this year. It's like, there's literally no improvement.
That's why I like to ride exercises into the ground before I change it up. You know,
Yeah.
like if I'm on like a stiff-legged deadlift kick, I'll just do that for like 3-4 months and just see how long I can take that. And then
Yeah.
if it starts to like, I don't know, sometimes a movement will just start to like feel stale, or maybe you just need to take a break from that movement pattern because you're
Yeah.
starting to feel a little shitty or whatever. But
Yeah, mine's always like mental. That's kind of the issue that I have is like, because I've ran some really like grueling stuff that it's like it's working, like it's making fantastic progress. And it's like I can gut it out for about 6 to 8 weeks. And then it's like it it starts getting a little hard to come in there every day and go like, oh, what do we got today? It's like, oh shit, more benching. Oh, I can't wait.
yeah. No, I feel that it's the novelty factor, but you got to kind of balance that out with the progress factor, you know?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
I am quite religious with the logbook as well, because I feel like, I don't know, I get a little dopamine spike every time it's like, yeah, I got that one more rep, or I put some more weight on the bar. I think that's important. And it's also
Definitely.
like, at the end of the day, it's math, right? You're trying to just slowly go up. And
Yeah.
if you don't have a logbook, I don't really know how else you can track that.
Yeah, you really can't because like I run a lot of stuff like Chuck Sipes, right?
I
Familiar with him?
do, yeah, I follow him on Instagram.
Ah,
I'm pretty
I
sure.
think well, Chuck Sipes is like an old school guy from like the 70s.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like okay, never mind then. I
I
don't
was like,
think
he's no, you're all good. I was like, oh my god, he's back from the grave. But just like he's easily my favorite lifter. Like a lot of my training is based off the stuff he does. And it's super freaking boring because it's the tonnage system. And so it's like it's 8 sets of like 6, 4, 2, 1, and you're just gradually tacking on stuff.
Yeah.
You can see how important it is. Like you really got to track that stuff because it is just so subtle, the increases.
Yeah, I don't try to go like too crazy. Like I guess when I'm bulking, it's like pretty easy to throw more weight up and like progress quite rapidly. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I just like that slow, steady progress. And I push my sets pretty hard. Like I don't really feel like I'm working very hard unless that last rep really slows down.
Yeah.
And like I don't necessarily train to absolute failure, but I try to like just make sure I'm close enough to failure on every working set. Like what's your goal with that? Like do you want every rep, that last rep, to really feel like a grind, or
No, no, not so like I'll tell you this and try it out because you might actually really like it, if especially if it's like a dead stop exercise.
Mhm.
But for like chin ups, overhead press, deadlifting, this I found for some reason this works super well. I like the idea where it's like, don't let the last set be easy, where it's like, oh
Yeah.
shit, this is like nothing. What I'll typically do is if I get to the last set, like especially the last rep, and I'm like, this is really easy. If I'm doing like a chin up, I'll get to the very top and I'll just hold it for a super, like I don't want the concentric to be slow,
Mm.
or grindy, but I'll hold the top and just hold that top for as long as possible and then very slowly creep down,
Oh,
let it sit. So I feel like in my mind, that last rep, I'm telling my body, like, this is exactly how I want this to look. I want perfect lockout, nice and controlled. Like I'm teaching it everything it needs to know for the next session.
mm.
Is kind of how I look at it. And then, like if I'm benching, and let's say the last rep was a little easy, I'll let that sucker sit on my chest for a super long time. And I'll just try and like slam it all the way to the top. Just make it as violent as possible.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting because like some people, there's a lot of people that don't train hard enough.
Mhm.
But then I feel like I've gotten myself to a place where I borderline train too hard, or I just like, not always, but when I'm feeling good and I'm like really trying to hit it, I almost need to like, I don't know. It's like finding that sweet spot where you're not going, you're allowing yourself to get some volume in without going, you know, yeah, if you're too intense, you're not going to be able to get the enough volume in.
Yeah. So you might relate to this because I certainly felt this way, where it was like this guy said, if you have one great session where you come in there and you're like, I'm a god, like I'm just the strongest human being ever, IPF, watch out, like I'm coming for you, right? You come in there, you absolutely smash it. And then it's like the next session, you question why you even picked up a barbell to begin with. You're like, I'm the worst lifter ever. Like, I suck. And the next session, you're like, dude, what happened? Like, I was so strong. And it's like, because you were so strong, because you were so on it that first day, the rest of your sessions suck. And then
Mhm.
it's like finally by the fourth or fifth session, you're like, all right, I won't unlive myself. Like I'll stay in this a little bit longer. So it's like sometimes for me, I usually train like pretty reserved, where it's like I definitely push to where it's like there's maybe like one more rep. Like I'm not failing, like I never fail. And unless it's like an isolation movement. If it's isolation, I'll do like you're saying, where it's like I'll go balls to the wall and just absolutely trash the muscle.
Yeah.
If it's compound, it's like that's too fatiguing for me. I got to have everything like smooth, fast,
Mm.
and the isolation's where I really like mess myself up.
Cool, man. That makes sense. All right. Well, we're creeping up to the hour mark. So there's a few things I wanted to get into just outside of lifting. What are some practices that you put in? Because that's one thing like my channel does also. I want to get into like the mental and like spiritual aspect of training,
Okay, I like it.
or just like health in general. Like, what are some things you do to, we were talking about, getting away from social media. We can dive into that a little bit more, but I feel like for me personally, like I've got the physical stuff locked down, like I train, I eat well. It's like that's pretty easy for me. But what about just like the mental, like keeping yourself mentally and like healthy, like not anxious and stressed, and because I think that's also important if you want to maximize the physical.
Right. Yeah. The mental is definitely super important. Um, kind of what I do is like when I get done with something that was stressful, like if I get done trading, it was like kind of a rough day. I find that journaling is really therapeutic. You just kind of write down, like just being conscious and writing stuff down where it's like, yeah, I kind of felt this way. Like I was very anxious in this moment and I kind of reacted poorly. Maybe I reacted really well. And that's like fantastic, like great improvement.
Mhm.
So it's like I do like journaling, especially at the end of the day, just kind of like wrapping things up and summarizing it. I feel like it makes you that much more present in your life.
Yeah.
And I've been experimenting recently with after my workouts, instead of just getting done and being like, all right, I'm going to down a protein shake and take a shower. I'll just sit down for a second and just take some deep breaths, kind of let everything calm back down and just kind of meditate on like, what did I just do? You
Mm.
know?
No, that's good. Do you have any kind of like religious or spiritual practices you get into?
Yeah, so I am like spiritual. I don't know, like I feel like most people now it's like religious. They're like, I'm not religious. Like I don't go to church, anything like that.
Spiritual, but not religious.
Yeah. So it's like something I was thinking on though, where I was like, I do think you need like religious practice, if that makes
Yeah.
any sense. Where
Yeah.
it's like spiritual is kind of like, yeah, I believe there's something more. It's like dope, awesome.
Okay.
And then it's like religious is like, well, what are you doing to further that? You know what I mean? It's like, I like training. I think training is good for you. It's like, that's great. It's like, are you going to train? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, what are you going to do? And then it's like, and then what kind of training? Like, what kind of training are you into? So it's like, the
Mm.
religion is like, what's your direction? The
Yeah.
religiousness is like you're practicing, like the spiritual is like, yeah, I believe. So for me, it's like spiritual, definitely believe in like a higher power and all that kind of stuff. And then it's like my religious practice is I'll just sit down and just kind of like try and connect a little bit. You know what I mean? Like higher self and all that kind of stuff, speak to God in my own way. And that's pretty much it. But I don't believe you have to like go to a church, especially the ones now.
Yeah.
Like it's not meditative. When you
No.
go there, it's like it's all this loud music. You're kind of like it's sit down, stand up, sing a few hymns. It's like, what is that? Like, do you really feel like you're connected to any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I feel that. I was raised Catholic, so I was around that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
agree with everything you're saying, man. Yeah, like actually like practicing stuff that, like going out in nature. That's one thing that I've personally been trying to, I'm doing this social media detox,
Yeah.
and I'm just trying to, I'm going on a canoe trip, going on camping trips, like being out in nature, just disconnecting.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that we're almost like being stripped of our spiritual nature as humans because
I
of all
agree.
all the technology and everything. I do want to dive into the into social media a bit more because we were talking about, it affects you. Like, what do you do in your day-to-day life to kind of like keep yourself in check when it comes to how much input you're getting?
So one of the things I do is I keep my phone off. Like I pretty much disable. all the apps I can possibly disable. So it's like I'm not getting that constant like bzz, or the dings and all that where it's like I'm working and it's like I keep checking my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I try to minimize my phone usage. And then it's like if I go on a date, this drives me crazy. It's like I've seen so many people, you go on a date or something like that. It's a nice, outing. And it's like you're on your phone the whole time. So you brought your phone with you. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, leave your phone in the car. There's nothing crazy that's going to happen. We've got a long time without having phones and we've done just fine.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's the phone, in my opinion, that's the biggest perpetrator of this kind of stuff. I don't know if the computer's as bad.
Because you have the phone on you at all times. Yeah.
And you're always waiting for the next buzz. And you're like, if someone messages you, you're like, oh shit, I got to respond right this second,
Yeah. You're just walking around with a little dopamine hit constantly.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And sorry, go on.
Oh, I get the same, just having that feeling like, oh, if I don't have my phone on me, I'm going to miss something important. Like, or there's going to be an emergency that I'll need to hear about, but it's like, nah, it never happens.
It never is. There's never that moment.
Like even when sorry to cut you off again, sorry, but even when I logged back into Instagram, just check those messages quick. I just like looked around. I'm like, yep, everything's exactly the same. Yeah. Didn't miss a damn thing.
Yeah. But it's like, I feel like, especially like social media is pretty bad. Like, getting like something from Yahoo or something like that. You're not like, oh shit, Yahoo. Like that's freaking awesome. But it's like Instagram's pretty bad. I think YouTube's much more tame. And then I don't know if you have TikTok. I had to get rid of that.
I don't have TikTok, no.
Don't get it. TikTok, I swear, is like the heroin of social media. Like I got it. I didn't expect to do much. It was the biggest time suck I've ever experienced.
Are you familiar with like the kind of masculine development space at all? Do you follow any?
Somewhat.
You know how like a lot of those guys will talk about, like controlling like a man needs to control his sexual energy. Yeah. It's crazy to me because like when I'm on my Instagram, there's a if you just get Instagram and you have 0 followers and the algorithm doesn't really know you, you will get inundated with fucking shaking asses in your face immediately. Immediately. Oh and it's like if you like on my Breaking Beta account, you can like click on one of those and say not interested in this type of content.
Yeah.
So you can like kind of like eventually it'll stop showing you that shit. But I started a business Instagram and I have like no followers. It's like the algorithm doesn't know me. And it was like the shaking asses again. I got reminded. I was like, what the fuck, man? Like you.
That's so funny. Like, I got to tell you, like sometimes, I mean, it's so hard not to get like entrapped into it. Like, you see someone shaking like a big ass. You're like, I'm interested. As a man, I'm interested.
Yeah, 100%.
But like, do you ever have those moments where you're looking at it and you're almost like, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I feel like a monkey, or I'm like, I'm just a monkey looking at some other monkey shaking its ass, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. Me monkey brain love that. You just feel kind of stupid. Like that's just how I feel sometimes. Like, you just kind of snap into it. Or like, dude, I'm watching someone I don't know just shake their ass, and like that's gonna get me a lot of likes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I can only imagine like what that does to our psychology, man.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly, but I know it fucks with me. Especially if you're a guy trying to like be in a committed relationship too. Like if you're looking at other women all the time and that shit's just being thrown in your face, like there's no way like that's not having a significant effect on modern relationships.
I definitely think it will make you more ungrateful of your partner. You just won't be as stoked. I think it'll throw off your sex drive. I think it might actually make your sex drive too high. Especially as a guy, it's like you get stimulated like that, you're gonna be hounding her nonstop, like, hey, let's go. And it's like just because you've been watching basically like softcore porn the whole day, so it's like that's not good. And then it's like for me, kind of what I was talking about is like, when you trade and whatnot, a lot of it's psychology. What I've noticed is the further I get into social media and even like watching like the ass shaking videos and all that, and you kind of watch that stuff. I don't know what it does either, but it significantly weakens your self-control and it makes you much more impulsive from my experience, where it's like, if I go through a big old binge of watching social media and all that kind of stuff, I go back to trading and it's like, you make a lot more mistakes much more often versus if you just totally cut it out, you're much more zen and you're much more in control of your emotions. That's what I've experienced.
100%. I agree with that completely. And one thing that in particular, I think it got so bad for me that when I went at the beginning of this digital detox, about 3 days in, I got really depressed for a day. I don't know what the hell it was, man, but I felt like anxious and depressed. Like I was just like this weird, like I was in this bubble of, I was just like, oh, and I'm
It's
like,
because that dopamine's gone. Like you just don't
yeah,
have that dopamine anymore.
yeah. So that's pretty dangerous. And I think we're gonna probably find out more about this in the next few years, like how harmful it is.
But who
Because
knows? I mean, it might get swept right under the rug because it's like there's so much money to be made there. It's like we know how these studies work. You can kind of fudge stuff to where it's not going to come out the way you think.
You've used the term like soy boy, so I know you're kind of in on that culture a little bit.
Yeah.
As far as like, do you think that there's a kind of like an organized effort to, I guess, say like demasculate men today?
I do think so. Like my perspective is always like it's always kind of both sides. You know what I mean? Where it's like how much can I control and then how much is being put on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think there is an attack on that where it's like a lot of the figures you see, they're all these weak dads. Like how many you look at like the old time dads and you look at the dads now, like
Look
on
like
comedy.
absolute fucking chads back in the day.
Yeah, bro, it's like they're the best of these, beasts.
Yeah.
And then it's like you look at them now, it's like they're these goofballs,
Yeah.
absolute, worthless, and the mom's got to do everything. That's got to have an impact.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Like men today and fathers today are definitely like fathers in particular. I feel like young men today are actually encouraged to like step away from fatherhood because it's being portrayed as something that's negative. Like, oh, you're gonna have a dad bod and wear dad shoes and dad hats and be stupid and dorky. Like pretty like do you not feel like you've kind of gotten that messaging?
I feel that way where it's like you do kind of dread it a little bit, but I'm kind of lucky. Like my dad was a very good role model in that
Yeah.
sense. And we had a lot of talks where it's like it's very fulfilling, like it's totally worth it. So he set a good example for me.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel confident on my end that I can like kind of handle it. And even like kind of like you're talking about is like you acknowledge like that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like that's an issue. And so it's like the kind of the dope thing is you could become a father and then set that example for everybody else. We're like, this
Yeah.
is how you could live that kind of life. Like I can show you
100%.
the way.
But some men just don't have that role model. They can't really find it because I don't think like media
Yeah.
is gonna point them towards that.
Well, that's the problem too, is like you have these guys, and like every guy's gonna experience this too, where it's like you do look for some kind of father figure or some kind of guidance. And then a lot of guys get trapped following these other guys that are just feeding them some real bad advice.
Yeah, like
You know?
some of the red pill dudes. I don't know if you're familiar with that
Yeah, yeah,
that whole thing. Like some of those guys, man. Like I agree with I agree with like a lot of what they have to say. And
yeah,
I think that's where you get trapped. You're like, that makes so much sense. And all of a sudden they just say
yeah.
some outrageous shit. You're like, well, I trust that he's right because I've been following.
You've been right 90% of the time, so you must be right here. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one thing, like a lot of those red pill dudes will talk about, women today are so degenerate and don't wife them up because they're all fucking whores and shit. And like pretty much just will say that. And then they'll be like, so what you need to do is go rack up a fuck ton of bodies, do this, do that. So
Right.
you mean
Yeah.
like, so what you're telling me to do is become part of the problem. Thanks,
Hey,
fucking
bro,
asshole.
that's yes, dude, yes, exactly. Oh my God.
Yeah,
It's like,
actually,
yeah, you're directly contributing.
yeah, I wanted to make a video on that, just kind of exposing the red pill. Be like, this is why it's.
So please do. It needs to be said. I'm just like, dude, that's a fucking problem. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm like,
It's like
I'm not.
you're the reason they're saying men aren't shit. Like that's the exact reason. You're making us look bad.
Yeah, 100%, man. Well, we could probably keep talking for hours, but we should probably wrap this up because we're over an hour. So if you can let people know where they can find you, that'd be great, man.
So it's Vald Viking on Instagram, and it's Vald Viking on YouTube. Very simple, and I'll post what is it, once every new moon.
Cool, man.
Got a
Well,
link out.
no, I appreciate the content you put out, dude. I hope you keep doing it. And if you ever want to hop on the podcast again, I'd love to do this again.
Oh, thanks so much, man. I'll be posting soon. I just want to say best of luck with your business. I hope you and your brother just crush it.
Thanks, buddy. And I'll send you an MP4 of this. So if you want to like put it in your own videos or whatever, but I'll let you know when it comes out.
I'd love that. Thank you so much, man. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, sounds good. Peace, brother.
All right. Have a good one, buddy.